Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for Z Nation Season 3. And what this video is going to be doing is reviewing the latest episode of Z Nation called Little Red and the Wolves. If you are not caught up with Z Nation and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I would exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So, overall, my overall impression of the episode was that it was actually pretty good. I really did enjoy this episode quite a bit. I really loved the action that was behind it. I loved the suspense. And what I really loved was the fact that they really delved into the characters of Murphy and 10,000, really giving them the opportunity to talk, express themselves, that we could really get inside of the characters and know what they are thinking. Oftentimes on Z Nation, we find that we really don't have a lot of time for that because the story is so action-packed and fast-moving. But I find that Z Nation has been doing a lot better with that over the seasons. And I think this episode is a very prime example of them being able to dive into the characters and really giving them their own story and making it incredible. They really made it work for me in this episode. So kudos to them. I really did enjoy it. So, obviously, where we left off in the last episode, we had 10,000 steal the boosters and escaped. He was able to escape from Murphy's clutches because he was able to get vaccinated. So, obviously, if a person that is bitten takes the booster, they are no longer under Murphy's control. However, as a result of that, we found out, of course, they're now going to be at risk with the zombies. You also found out that if the person had an injury or something beforehand, it comes back. Because after 10,000 took it, we saw in this episode that his bullet wound that he had from the Season 2 finale, it opened back up and was bleeding. So that is a consequence. And of course, they have to keep taking it, or else they're going to end up back under Murphy's control. And then, of course, you also have consequences for people, well, for Murphy, because if he doesn't take the boosters, then the virus is going to be continually breaking down his body, which we've seen that it's been doing ever since the season, premiere, ever since the show started. We've seen that his body has been taking a toll. He's becoming more and more like a zombie. And we saw examples of that in this episode of further evidence. When Murphy looked at some parts of his skin throughout the episode, he saw that there were like these white blotches, almost like bleach on clothes. If you would spill bleach on your clothes, how it makes that spot. It reminded me of that. And you saw that maybe there are more things going on with Murphy's body. So obviously he wants to take that booster to prevent him from becoming like patient zero. So he sends out his most trusted soldier. I believe his name is Will. It was the father of the little girl that Murphy bit in Murphy's Miracle, to go get 10,000 and bring him back and bring the boosters back. So it dealt with Murphy's perspective and things that were going on with him, and it also dealt with 10,000's perspective. Now with Murphy, one of the things that you found was Murphy was dealing with the after effects of Dr. Murch's suicide. As we know, at the end of the last episode, Dr. Murch injected herself, she got eaten by the zombies, and she did this intentionally, I guess, to stop Murphy's plan from going forward. And of course, Dr. Murch died. She sacrificed herself to hopefully stop this blends idea. And basically, Murphy was able to recover Dr. Murch's partially eaten body. She did not turn into a zombie. And basically, most of the episode Murphy spends basically yelling at Dr. Murch's body. It's very interesting. He has like a monologue, in a sense, with the body, and basically expressing different emotions. On the one hand, he's very frustrated over the fact that she would do something like this. On the other hand, he's worried, because obviously his followers expect the cure. If he can't provide the cure, he's no good. And at that point, it definitely runs a risk that he might lose his followers. And I really liked in this episode how they really actually brought more of the human factor to Murphy, and in a sense with his emotions, because often when we think of Murphy, we think of selfishness. We think of somebody who's only out to look for himself. And this episode, I think, really gave us an insight into Murphy and how he's feeling. And we definitely know that he is passionate about this blends idea, that I think that really he does fully feel like he wants to save humanity, that he in a sense has brought on that savior of humanity attitude and persona, that it's not really an act. I'm not going to say he's not going to do some selfish things, and of course he probably wants to be the supreme ruler of the world, but nonetheless, the fact that he wants to do this for people is definitely something that we haven't seen in his character because of his past, because of how he's been over the entire series. So I really liked how it gave Murphy the chance to open up, and I don't think he was being fake because he was alone. Like, nobody was there with him. It's not like he could lie to somebody, and I don't think he would lie to Dr. Murch's body. It just wouldn't make sense. Well, obviously, one thing that was very, very interesting that I really liked about Murphy's monologue was basically that he found it very incredible that somebody would not want to become a blend. I liked how you see those different perspectives and you think to yourself, well, the fact that people would not want to do this to Murphy, that's just something that he can't understand. But on the other hand, he's also angry at Dr. Murch for making him what he is. You know, Murphy was like, oh, well, Dr. Murch, you know, you don't like the fact that you want to be a blend. You don't like the fact that this is what I want to do. But hey, guess whose fault that is? Yours. You made me what I am. You injected this thing into me rather than finishing it. And now you want to, you know, in a sense, not accept the consequences of your actions and not accept the fact that this is what it's going to do. This is what's going to happen. So Murphy was definitely very, very interesting in this episode. Definitely gave a lot of insight into the character. I think we do see that he does care. He wants to do this. He wants to be the savior, just maybe not in a way that maybe some people would want. Because while Murphy sees it as the way for people to live, 10,000 sees it as brainwashing, as we see in the episode. And of course, Murphy is still struggling with his zombie side in a sense, but it actually comes to use because throughout the episode, we see Murphy looking at Dr. Murch's head, and the top of her head is exposed because the zombies obviously ate part of her head, and her brains were exposed. And Murphy looked at them at times, but didn't, you know, he didn't want to eat them. He didn't want anything to do with it. But as the episode went on, and he realized, you know, I don't know how to make this cure. I don't know what to do. He wanted to get back to work. He wanted to keep everything going. He decides to eat Dr. Murch's brain. And as a result of doing that, he's able to, in a sense, gain her intelligence, and he's able to work on some things with the cure. So he was writing down different formulas, different things that, you know, obviously he wouldn't know just being a common person. So it helped. And I think that it really is going to get him back on track. And it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to need the group, Warren's group, but it doesn't mean they won't show up in the future. So obviously that was the main thing that was going on there. And then, of course, with 10,000, this episode really, in a sense, got to see 10,000 for the first time since he's been bitten to actually give his own thoughts, to see what he's thinking. Of course, when he escaped, he was injected with the booster, so he's better. He is himself again in a sense, but nonetheless, he's being chased. He's weak because his bullet wound opened up. And we saw in the episode that he ends up stealing this motorcycle from some guy. He rides around on it, and in a sense, he feels free. I think that really 10,000 has been longing for his freedom ever since he found out he was bitten, and this gave him the first time to experience that again. And he rode along a path for a little while, killed a couple zombies, and then he ends up being wrecked off of it by these two bandits, I guess. And they end up stealing both the bike and the boosters, and they leave 10,000 chained up. And basically, 10,000 is able to fight off the zombies, and eventually Murphy's soldier, Will, catches up to him and the two of them end up having to go on their own mission to recover the boosters from the individuals that stole his bike. And along the way, we're able to really dive into 10,000's character a little bit to see how he does look at Murphy's blend idea, and we know that he's not for it. And Will and 10,000 end up basically having a debate where Will was like, look, before this, my daughter was dying. We were always afraid. After Murphy bit us, we were no longer afraid. I'm no longer afraid. And 10,000 looks at it as, no, this isn't a cure. This isn't anything. This is brainwashing. This is Murphy being who he is. And see, of course, 10,000 has gotten to know Murphy personally, which is why I think he's so against the idea, as well as Warren's group. Like, Warren and 10,000 and the rest of the group know that Murphy has that selfish tendency. He has that selfishness about him that would make him take advantage of people, to use people as long as he possibly can. And while we may have seen a little bit of a different side of Murphy come out in this episode, it doesn't necessarily mean that Murphy still wouldn't take advantage of his situation. And nonetheless, you know, it really is a hard choice, because you do think about it. He can control people. That is exactly what he does with his abilities. So it's really a matter of, do you want to be immune but maybe under Murphy's control, or do you want to be free and be at risk? Well, 10,000 would rather be free. And I really liked how it delved into 10,000's thoughts, but we also got a blast from the past in this episode with Red and 5K. If you remember back in the movie that was the premiere of season 3, we were introduced to Red, the woman who wore all red, and the little boy that was raised by crows, 5,000, as they coined him in that episode. And of course, as we know, 5K was killed by zombies in that episode, and we also presume that Red was killed by zombies whenever she went and attacked them after they found out that 5K was dead. And the thing is that 10,000 was somewhat responsible, or at least he feels responsible for that, because they were surrounded and he wasn't able to save 5K. And throughout the episode, you see 10,000 having visions of Red, that really it was a vision of her that he was seeing, that in a sense allowed him to get away at times from Will, because him and Will basically are being chased, they're chasing each other throughout the episode. And what ended up happening was, you find that 10,000 frequently had those thoughts, and in a sense, those thoughts really took him over at times to where he thought he was actually being with Red. Like, he thought that he was just laying with her at times, sitting with her, talking with her. And at the very end of the episode, he has like these visions that these wolves are basically chasing him, when it's actually soldiers, I think. It was zombies that basically were wearing like gas masks, and 10,000 ended up defeating them at the end of the episode. And he was hoping that what he was doing was saving 5,000, but it turned out that, of course, it wasn't, because obviously 5,000 has passed, and he ends up finding that both of the bandits have been killed by these zombies, and he's able to take the boosters back. And the very end of the episode has 10,000 getting away from Will, getting away from the zombies. He injects himself again, and he has a vision that, in a sense, he's in some better place, some, pretend world that's peaceful. There are no zombies, no danger, and that Red, 5K, and him are all reunited, and basically just sitting there, and 5K says, hey, 10,000, my kill's up to this many, and then he's like, you should, well, go get more, and being at peace. So I think that the booster, because he took it, in a sense is affecting him, because they did talk about how the booster can have effects on his brain, and I think that it is. I think that's part of the reason, but I think it's also something that 10,000 uses to channel, number one, his fears. Number two, I think it was used to really keep him going in the episode. When all hope was lost, I think he really dug down and thought about a time when he failed somebody and he didn't want to do that again, and he didn't want to fail himself. So I think it was a little bit of a mix of everything, but we do see how much those two had an effect on his life and how much it's impacted him now. So again, I thought that that was a very good story for him. And the end of the episode comes and he has to inject himself a second time, and he passes out, and we hear footsteps. And from there, we don't know what's going to happen. But the very, very last scene of the episode had Will going back to Murphy and reporting that 10,000 was dead. And he basically says, yeah, like these zombies got him. They ate him, obviously. Like, he brings back some little pieces of clothing. And Murphy goes, well, did you see 10,000 die? And Will goes, no, I didn't, but he has to be. And Murphy goes, no, he's not. That's 10,000. That's who he is. If you didn't see him die, then he's still alive. And obviously, we know he's still alive. And Murphy basically says, we got to get ready, because 10,000 is going to go find the group. They're going to come here, and they're going to want what we have. So, in a sense, we don't know who's going to find 10,000 at the very end of the episode. Who knows? Maybe Warren's group has come across him. They weren't in this episode, so it might make sense that the stories combine. Could be somebody brand new. Could be skeezy and sketchy. You never know. They might have another adventure again. Hard to say, but I am looking forward to seeing next week's episode to see how everything's going to tie together, and I really, really enjoyed this week's episode. So with that, I'm going to bring this video to a close. I want to thank all of you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.